All right, our first presenter of the day was one of those little children who never stopped asking why. Have you had one of those? I know I was one of those kids. Oh my God, it drive my mom crazy. I got two 7-year-olds at home, and they're in that stage. So, you got 3 questions in. Why is the sky blue? And you're explaining the refraction of light, and you're going, what am I doing? Well, she was one of those kids. She studied psychology, world religions, metaphysics while working in the healthcare industry in a quest for understanding mind, body, and spirit connection. A wise teacher once told her that her gentleness is her strength. So after a lifetime of being told that she was too sensitive, she decided to embrace her sensitivity when otherworldly beings showed up to answer her questions of why. She interacted with the beings that others couldn't see and visited places that others haven't been, overcoming extreme fear and slowly developing relationships with these entities. She's been advised that now is the time to share these experiences with others and invite them to explore new realms of possibilities. So what she's going to talk about today is her ongoing relationship with these alien beings. From the time she was very young, for most of her life, she believed that these interactions were just scary dreams. But finally, as an adult, with the help of a large praying mantis being named Crote, she accepted that these experiences were real. Crote reached out to her in friendship and love, explaining that he and many others have been watching humans and Earth for a very long time with love and longing for a closer relationship with the easily frightened humans. As they have learned our ways, we have discovered that they have discovered that we like gifts. Shiny baubles, of course, but also intangible rewards of insight and glimpses of other worlds. They are reaching out sometimes with gifts in an attempt to communicate with us, and she will tell us how she overcame her fears and learned to recognize their offerings so that if you choose, you too can receive gifts from these aliens. Please join me in welcoming Donna Lynn.
Donna Lynn. When I was first asked to speak at this conference, I did my usual method of working with the aliens, which is to get a journal and put it by my bed and a pen and just ask, come tell me what I should say. And they usually wake me up at around 3 a.m. and they have words or phrases or messages, and I write it all down and go back to sleep. And sometimes I remember what I wrote and sometimes I don't. And usually after about 3 weeks of that, I have enough notes that I can put together a legitimate talk or paragraphs or whatever I need. But I was invited in December, and I went through December, January, February, and it was the end of February, and I had received nothing. And I was starting to panic a little bit. And I was standing in my kitchen one day, and I just asked out loud, why am I not getting any information to talk about? And I heard this very loud, booming male voice, which is Crote, my praying mantis alien. And he said, because we do not yet know who will be in attendance. So that kind of blew me away, because I'm thinking about things like, what am I going to wear? And how am I going to make the trip? And the aliens are way beyond that. They're thinking, who's going to be listening to the message and what they need to hear? So about halfway through March, I started getting the messages, and it all came together pretty fast. So, and people who are intuitive or channelers or sensitive, a lot of times we think, is this just all in my head? Am I just making all this up? And then something like that happens, and it kind of confirms that wasn't my thoughts. I don't talk that way. I don't think that way. So I know it comes from outside myself. And we tend to think of aliens as like distant and clinical and impersonal, that maybe they look at us as though we're an ant farm. That's what I thought for the longest time. I've watched ants are kind of scurrying around, and that's probably how they look at us. But they've made it real clear that no, they see each and every one of us as an individual. And they recognize us as individuals, and they respect us as individuals. And, we may think we have a small little life rushing around, going to work, paying our bills, but they've told me that nobody's life is small. Each one of us has something to offer, and each one of us is important. And they do prefer, at this time, one-on-one relationships with us. Everybody says, why don't they come land on the White House lawn? But they know how humans are, and there'd be rioting and violence and mob panic. So at this time, they're doing one-on-one relationships with people, and they find that works best, because one-on-one people are usually pretty nice and pretty friendly, but you get a group together and it's not always that way. So for those who don't know my story, I've been visited by aliens all my life. I used to call them monsters. I'd wake up screaming. My mom took me to doctors and they said it was night terrors and that I would outgrow them, but I never did. And about the time I was a teenager in my 20s, it was so overwhelming. I'd wake up with these big black eyes staring me in the face, and I was paralyzed, and it's like this primal fear rises up in you and all you can do is scream. And then, they take me on ships and show me bizarre things, and it was hard to live with and have a normal life too. So I started writing everything down in journals and books and tucking them away so that I could then just go on with a normal type life. And when I decided to write a book, I just kind of pulled all those out, and they all kind of came together and made sense. And I realized, wow, this was real the whole time. These experiences, they all kind of tie in, and it makes sense, but sometimes at the time it doesn't make any sense. And so I still call them dreams because it's a different reality than this one, but it feels just as real. So it's kind of hard to make the transition or to describe one experience to another. And that's a paradox that abductees face when we're trying to come to terms with what has happened, is explaining it. Because it's so bizarre and so different, you're trying to translate things from one reality into another, into this reality, and a lot of things don't translate well or interpret well. And we react with fear. Humans react with fear to things we don't understand, or you wake up in the night and there's an alien in your room. Your first thing, response is to throw your arms around or kick or scream. And they're very frail. They have frail little bodies, so most people think that they're bullies, especially the Greys. They come in groups of 3 and they paralyze you and they take you away, and that's kind of a mean thing to do. But they've explained to me that they have to do that because humans, we're pretty solid and heavy and rooted in the earth, and they have these frail little bodies. And if we panic, one time I was waking up on an exam table and they were starting to get more comfortable with allowing me to remember and come awake when I was with them. And I looked over and there was a gray alien next to me, and I just instinctively went like that, and I whacked him, and he kind of went flying and hit the wall. And so I realized that, that's why they paralyze us. It's not to be mean or cruel, it's for their own physical safety. But they are actively working at not being so frightening, because they used to terrify us. They used to come in the bedrooms at night and stare in your face, and they don't do that so much anymore when they approach people. They're trying to be a little more friendly. And I had a lady from Germany write to me that she had aliens visit her when she was a child, but she told them to go away and never come back because she was so frightened. And after reading my book, she started inviting them back, and she woke up one night and there were 3 gray aliens right next to her bed, and just before she started to panic, one of them transformed itself into Shirley Temple and came over and took her hand, and she said she was amazed at how soft it was, and they answered some of her questions and they interacted, and then the alien stepped back and turned back into an alien, and the 3 of them disappeared. And she didn't panic at all. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. And so they're working on, approaching in a friendlier manner like that. And how they individualize it, they came to her as Shirley Temple, which I guess was comforting and reassuring for her, but I don't really like Shirley Temple. I thought she was annoying, so they never came to me as Shirley Temple. So they're trying, and they wanted me to show the pictures I've sketched over the years, ones that I've seen, so that hopefully, if you see them, you'll know what they are and maybe won't be as scared as I was. I apologize for my primitive artwork. I was showing my 8-year-old grandson the pictures, kind of in the hopes to see if he recognized any of them, if he's interacted with any of them, and all he said was, "Well, you're not a very good drawer." But it didn't faze him at all that he's looking at pictures of alien beings. So I like that idea that maybe his generation is going to finally have the more open contact and friendliness. It's taken so many years to get to that point. So this was the first one I saw that I remembered and was able to draw it. She told me her name was Alana and about 3 or 4 inches tall, and I called her a fairy. There's a group of them that look similar, and they're about 3 or 4 inches tall. They have wings that are like dragonfly wings, kind of shimmery, and they're very colorful. I didn't do this one in color, but I saw this one. I didn't put a date, but I think it was around 2005 or so. And that's more how the wings look. They're like dragonflies, and they're transparent, and they're shimmery, but yet they have little furry tips. Sometimes they leave little bits of white fur or blue fur after they visited, and they have like tree frog fingers. And this one had a little belt. The other one had a necklace. They like to be fancy, just like we do, I guess. And then the most recent one I saw that I sketched was this from 2005. I woke up, it was right at midnight. I looked at the clock, it was 12 o'clock, and she was just laying over my bed, looking at me, hovering in the air. And when she realized I was there, I was just staring at her. When she realized I was there, she panicked and stood up in the air and went like this and went through a doorway and disappeared. And I could sense her presence, and I asked her to come back, but she didn't. But looking at the 3 of them, I wonder, is it the same being over the course of 36 years that's been following me, or are they different beings just of the same species? Because they're all about the same size, and they all have unusual looking hair. In fact, the one with the short hair, I wondered if it was antenna or hair. And sometimes I wonder, but they're definitely all the same species. And then, of course, the grays. I've seen them off and on my whole life. And I was able to sketch some, just kind of roughly. The first one, January, I dated from January 2003. The heart-shaped head and pretty lips kind of stuck with me because we tend to think of them as kind of creepy looking. But this one was actually almost pretty in a weird kind of way. But when they turn, and then they have no profile at all. There's no nose, no chin, kind of no neck. It's just like a creepy look. And that looked kind of like a female one to me. And then I saw this one I dated 2007, and it looks more male to me, but it still had the heart-shaped head and the giant eyes. And also, from what I've seen with the grays, they have like tree frog fingers, 3 fingers that are like tree frogs, and they don't have feet. They don't stand on the ground like we do. They have like fins or flippers, and they kick constantly like they're treading water in our atmosphere. And that's how people say they're different heights, but they're probably actually about 3 feet tall, but they kick their little feet and come up so that they can be eye level to us too, or even taller than us. So that's what I've always seen anyway. And then I saw this one that was a gray, but a little different, and it had a strange mouth that looked like a spiral, kind of puckery, kind of creepy looking. And then it went like this and had these wings that were similar to the fairy wings, like shimmery and translucent. And it just came to me that maybe all the grays have wings, but they keep them folded in or tucked in, kind of like a ladybug. You don't know a ladybug has wings when you see it walking around until it opens up. So, but they don't really need the wings because they kind of float in our atmosphere and kick. And that one had the really bizarre profile too. So then the other being that I'm familiar with a lot, she calls herself Atekana. She was very clear in how to spell and pronounce her name. And for the longest time, as a child and a young adult, I just thought she was a ghost because she's pure white and transparent and doesn't really have a body, much going down below her arms, very long arms, and very, very gentle and loving and nurturing and feminine. I actually thought it was a ghost of one of my grandmothers because both of them had passed away before I was born. So if I was like upset or sick or hurting, she would often sit on the side of the bed and stroke my hair, touch my face. So to me, that was grandmotherly, and I just assumed it was a ghost. But then at this point, in 2007, when she came to me, that's the day she told me her name. And then she has these pretty heart-shaped lips, and she went like this and showed these big, giant, sharp white teeth. That kind of took me aback a little bit because I thought of her as so gentle and loving. And she quickly closed her mouth when she saw that it scared me. And she said she's a geneticist, and she works with Is this still working? Okay. She's a geneticist, and she works with Earth DNA. That's her main job. And she had just created these teeth, and she was so proud of them, she wanted to show me. Because she had used shark DNA and maybe barracuda and something else and combined it and made these really big, awesome teeth. So as far as I know, they don't need to eat. So she was just kind of playing or experimenting with making these teeth and was so proud and wanted to show me. And it was like, I guess that's not my grandma. That's that's an alien. So so when she was talking about the genetics and the DNA, she said most of the aliens who work with me are interested in DNA and genetics and DNA of the whole planet, because Earth has this amazing DNA from our trees to our ocean creatures to humans. And then she said she's specifically interested in my DNA, which kind of freaked me out because I don't think I'm really different from anybody else. But so that could explain one of the reasons why aliens come to visit Earth is they're interested in the DNA here. It's different from what's on any other planets anywhere. And then another being that comes sometimes, not too often, has told her, she always announces herself. She always says, I am Kaisos of the future. And she has a very chattery, quick little voice, and she's small, like a monkey or a cat, and can't hold still, like she's scrambling around the room the whole time and very active. And she has the same little feet. She's about 3 feet tall and kind of wing-like arms. And she's playful and mischievous, like that first one. She woke me up one morning looking at me. You know, I opened up my eyes and saw that face at the side of my bed. And then she kicked her legs and went up to show me who she was. And she said she's mostly interested in the divine feminine and in restoring the balance of male and female on the earth and Mother Earth and trees. And women, the wisdom of women, especially older women. Actually, she didn't start coming to me until I was 40, in my 40s or so. So she's interested in that. And then these other beings, they don't have bodies. I call them the watchers because they just come and observe. Sometimes I'll wake up and my bedroom will be glowing with a purple light. And on this occasion, I saw this one. It was up in the corner of my bedroom, and it started as a bright light, and then it started spinning and spinning and spinning and throwing off sparks, kind of like fireworks. And then it faded out, died down, and then another one in the other corner did it, and then in the other corner. So there were 3 of them. They work in groups of 3 also. And they did that several times until the room was bright, glowing purple, and then they showed me in my mind's eye a file folder that said Earth with my birth date. And they explained that they're the watchers for people. We each have a life plan or whatever that they would put in a folder, I guess. That was their way of explaining it to me. And they come at crossroads in our lives. If you're deciding to get married or make a big move or make a big career change, they come and observe if we're following our life path. And if we're not, they can send people or events into our lives to keep nudging us and keep us on the right path. And also with the watchers, I found, I think, of what might be a kind of proof. I had glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling in that house, and the bedroom was always left with a bright glowing purple light after they left. And that particular time when they had explained who they were, I was laying in bed trying to get back to sleep, staring at the ceiling, and after the purple glow went away, I realized the stars were glowing, and I turned and looked, and it was 3:33 on my clock, and our lights hadn't been on for hours. So where did the glow-in-the-dark stars pick up the ambient light to be glowing from, unless it was from the watchers? So maybe that was like a type of proof. And then I have Crote, of course. He's my main alien guide, has been with me throughout my life. The one that comes, he's probably here right now. He's a 7-foot-tall praying mantis. He looks a lot like that, except his eyes are black. And I first saw him when I was 8 years old. He appeared in my bedroom at the foot of my bed, and he was wearing like this robe with a high collar and just very regal and magnificent looking. And he can change size, though. I've seen him also smaller, and I thought he was a praying mantis completely until one time when I was working outdoors in Florida, I saw a mole cricket, which is, I'd never seen one of those before. They're kind of scary looking too, and they're pretty big. But I realize now he's kind of a combination of a mole cricket and a praying mantis. And he does have feet, unlike the others that kick with their little flippers. He has big, powerful hind legs that he stands up on, and so he's just this magnificent creature, and he just generates so much love and so much compassion, and he's just like the main guy, and he loves humanity. He just loves all people. And the Greys, a lot of people think the Greys are robotic or artificial intelligence or hive mind, but I've been told that they're individuals. They're just so different from humans, and that they don't like humans a whole lot. They don't like the way we treat each other. They don't like the way we treat the planet. They don't have a lot of respect for us. So that's why a lot of people have the impression that the Greys are not nice or they're not good. One time I was taken into a control room of a ship where 2 Greys were flying it, and I could see the front was all clear, and I could see we were zipping through like a forest, and we were literally going through the trees, and they explained to me that the molecules are vibrating at a rate where we could go through things, pass through things. And then one of the Greys stood up and gestured like this for me to take a seat at the controls, and I was kind of like, whoa, okay. So I sat there, and it was a control panel with symbols and lights, and I didn't know what to do, and the Grey next to me, suddenly she put her hands up like this, like, you go ahead and do it. And I kind of panicked because we started to slow down, and I didn't want to touch anything, and I was afraid we were going to crash. I could see some buildings up ahead, and I thought we were going to crash into the buildings. And the ship just slowed right down and just kind of bumped like a balloon against the building, and no harm or anything. And this Grey alien next to me just busted out laughing. I was like, okay, that's not what you would expect. And then I started laughing too. But now that I know how they feel about us, I'm thinking she was probably laughing at me, not with me. So they do have a sense of humor in what they do and they talk about. And when Crote, he's the one who answers questions a lot of times when I ask about things. And if he takes me places to show me things, he always stands just behind me to my right, and I hear his voice in my right ear. And I realize it's because he's just so magnificent and so overpowering that I would be just staring at him the whole time and not paying attention to what he's trying to show me or teach me. And the Greys tend to do that too. And I think that's another reason those of us that have had contact have trouble describing what it is or remembering, because we didn't really interact. You know, with humans, you have the eye contact, you have the body language, so it helps you to remember what the conversation was. But with the aliens standing behind you, you don't remember it quite the same way. So, and there's one other type of alien, but I don't have a picture that I've seen on every ship, and I see sometimes in my home before and after a visit, and I call them the brown scurries. They're little brown fuzzy creatures like a large cat or a raccoon, and they move super fast, and so fast that we can't see them with straight vision. I see them out of the corner of my eye, and I asked one time, are they your pets? Because I was curious if aliens had pets. And they said they clean up messes, and they kind of showed me a vision of something getting knocked over, and the brown scurry just runs over and zips over it and cleans the area, because they like to keep things clean and neat. But everything that they say and do has multiple layers of meanings, and I also got the idea that they clean up thoughts. If a human witnesses something, especially on board a ship or with an alien, that we're not supposed to know that at this time, they can come in and take that memory before it sets into your brain. They move that fast. And so, you know, if you've ever awakened and thought, wow, that was a great dream, that was a great idea, but I can't quite remember what it was, maybe the brown scurry came and took it away because humanity's not ready to know that yet. So what they have told me, up till now, most of the people who have interacted with aliens are sensitive psychics, kind of the woo-woo people. But what they want now is to try to get more scientists and engineers and medical researchers involved, so that because they do give ideas. They kind of seed information into our consciousness, and they want to help us with technology. They have technology they want to share with us as far as cleaning plastic out of the oceans and things like that. Healing, they have healing abilities. And a lot of people think they're just going to swoosh us up into a ship one day and come and clean up the earth for us, but that's not how it works. We're here to do the work. We have to do it. But they'll send us ideas and suggestions, and they'll help along the way. But we have to be the ones to do it. So because they want to reach out to people, different types of people than they have been reaching, one of the things they've learned is they give gifts, because everybody likes to receive gifts. And when they give gifts, they're seen as less threatening and less menacing and maybe more friendly. So I realized that some of the gifts they have given me, which I didn't realize at first, but I've come to learn that's what they were. And first I need to tell you about dogs, because my dog has been very helpful in helping me find the gifts. I've always had dogs and cats, and I've always wanted to sleep with a dog on my bed, and I think it was largely subconscious because I thought they'd protect me from the aliens coming, but they never did. They never bark, they never growl. What's up with that? And I've even seen them on ships. One time I was on an exam table, and I looked over, and there was my cat in the arms of a gray, and my cat just looked at me and started purring. It's like, thanks a lot. So I think that cats and dogs, they can see things and sense things that we can't, and I think they know they're there. And another thing that helps to know is dogs are a good judge of character. If your dog doesn't like somebody, there's usually a good reason. So the dogs seem to be fine with them. So that helps me to realize they're not so bad, maybe. So the first thing that I found that I realized was a gift, I lived in Florida. It was the 1990s. My dog, I was taking him for a walk, and he stopped in the middle of the street and sniffed at this silver thing that was shining in the sun, and he wouldn't move. I was like, come on, let's get out of the street. So I picked it up and got off the street and looked at it, and it said Inspire. And I had just been beginning to think about putting together a book at that time. And as you can see, it's old, it's been run over, it's kind of beat up, and that's kind of how I was feeling at the time with health problems and stuff. But so that kind of made me think, well, maybe that's a message that I can still inspire people. And then in 1998, I opened up my jewelry box one day. I have a big, nice wooden jewelry box that my grandmother brought over from Scotland. And this dolphin crystal was sitting in there. And it's obviously old. The crystal's kind of worn. And I don't remember ever seeing it before. I don't know how it got there. And I asked my daughter and I asked my husband. They'd never seen it. So I didn't think much of it. And then a few days later, I opened up the jewelry box, and this serpentine chain was in there because I didn't know what kind of chain to put it on. And it just fit perfectly. And as I was sliding the dolphin crystal onto the chain, I got a vivid memory of how I got it. I drove back and forth to work twice a day through Tarpon Springs, Florida, and there was a pawn shop on a corner, bright yellow, big 2-story pawn shop, and I had a memory of going in there, and it was brightly lit and had big windows, big beautiful store, and had a very nice jewelry counter. And a short little lady was insisting that I buy this dolphin crystal. So I thought, okay, I don't usually shop in pawn shops, and that doesn't sound familiar, but it was such a vivid memory, I just accepted it. And then a few months later, I got off early, and I was driving by the pawn shop, and I thought, oh, I'll go in there and see if they have more nice jewelry. And I went in, and my reality just got slammed because that was not the store I was in. It was small and dark and had little windows with bars on them and little crowded aisles and no jewelry counter at all. Had like a glass case with guns in it. But so that's when I realized, wow, this came from maybe somewhere beyond. I don't know. And the little lady that gave it to me might have not really been a lady, might have been an alien. I don't know. But that's the example of the kind of gifts they give. And then it was 10 years later, it's not often that they do this. 10 years later, in 2008, I was divorced and I had moved back to Florida. I was walking my dog, the same dog, in a park, and he stopped at this tree and lifted his leg, and then he wouldn't move, and he just kept looking at me, and I was like, let's go. And then I raised my eyes, and right at my eye level on this tree was this rosary hanging there. And I looked around, and there was nobody around, nobody looking out of the windows, and I touched it, and that's part of the gifts too. When you touch them, you kind of get a sensation that this was you're meant to have this. And the night before, I had been asking Crote, I had been reading a lot about aliens, and a lot of people believe they're demons or fallen angels, or they're not good, and we need to be wary. And I had never experienced that. I've only experienced love and kindness and compassion from them, but I was a little concerned because I am a Christian, and I didn't want to go over onto the evil side, so I had been kind of asking for a sign. And then I see this rosary the next day, and it was just cheap plastic beads and on just an old string. So I thought, well, thanks a lot. It's kind of just an old junky thing. But I took it anyway, and I put it on. And the very next day, my dog took me back to the same park. I went to the same tree, and there hanging on the same branch was a much nicer necklace. So I don't know if they were like, again, I don't know if they're ridiculing me half the time or not, that, oh yeah, you didn't like the cheap plastic one, so we'll give you this one. And it's onyx and hematite beads with a nice silver clasp, and the cross is hematite. And again, when I looked around, there's nobody there. I thought somebody was messing with me or something, but there was no one there. And when I touch it, I can feel, like this was put there for you to find, and it's confirmation that, it's okay with your beliefs. And then not too much later, a couple months later, I think, I found this om in the middle of the street. It was shining, sparkly, and it's old too. A lot of the things they give seem like they're old, so they probably have some kind of history to them. But, and that was a reminder that they respect all faiths, not just Christianity, because the Om is used, I believe, with Buddhism and Hinduism. And actually, I've asked them before about God and about beliefs, and they're amazed that humans have faith in this world. They know our lives aren't easy and the world is hard, and they're impressed with the faith that humanity does have in the face of our difficulties. And then the most recent, second to last gift I've gotten was this butterfly. I walked into my kitchen one morning. It wasn't on the chain, just the butterfly with the sparkle. It was laying on my kitchen floor, in the middle of the kitchen floor. And I live alone, and I hadn't had anybody to my house in a few days. Where did it come from? I didn't see it there last night. It was just there in the morning. So I picked it up, and this again had a lot of meaning for me because it was around 2015, and I had been diagnosed not too long before with lupus, an autoimmune disease, which was really causing me a lot of struggle emotionally and physically, and I was really down about it. And I asked if they could help with that because they have helped me with migraine headaches in the past. And when I picked that up, it was like a message, because the sign for lupus is the butterfly, because it causes a butterfly-shaped rash on your face when it's flaring. So that was an answer, that they acknowledge that I'm struggling, they acknowledge the health issues, but at this time, they're not able or willing to help with them. For some reason, I need to live with it and deal with it. And it's very intricate, and on the back side, it looks old and worn. And being copper, I was thinking, oh, what kind of chain am I going to put that on? And the very next day when I opened up my jewelry box, there was a copper chain that it fits on. So it's just bizarre that they can read your thoughts and they know what you're thinking, and they understand. So these, I don't want to focus on tangible things so much, because the most important gifts they give us are intangible ones of faith and love and compassion, and that we're not alone in the universe, they're space brothers and sisters. They do care about us. They do want to help. They do care about the earth. And they want to reach out to more people. They're extending an invitation for people to, but you have to ask, because we all have free will. You have to ask them to come and visit you, like the lady in Germany did. And they're trying really hard not to scare us. They'll try not to terrify you if they show up in your bedroom. But the fear is a gift in a way also, because our solar plexus right here is where we hold our strongest emotions. And in today's world, with so much going on and people being lied to and betrayed and everything, most of us have built kind of a barricade around our solar plexus, and we don't allow a lot of the feelings to come in or out. And so when you wake up and there's an alien in your bedroom, that sheer terror cracks open the barrier that you've built in your solar plexus, and that allows some of the bad feelings that you've harbored to come out and allows love. Then you can bring in more love and compassion and focus on that. And a lot of people are walking around right now with stomach troubles, Crohn's disease and heartburn and a lot of stomach troubles. And sometimes that can be related because they've built this barrier in their solar plexus and things are stifled in there. So the fear, and you don't have to wait for an alien to scare you. You can work on trying to break that down and open that up. And every time you get negative or fearful thoughts, instead try to replace them with loving thoughts, because love and fear can't exist in the same place at the same time. So if you keep that full with love more than fear, and that way they can reach you better too, because they operate in a vibration of love and compassion, and it's easier for them to connect with humans if you're open in your solar plexus. And I was curious about the solar plexus idea. It's kind of a strange word. So I got out my thesaurus. I'm sure you know, it's not an actual definition like a dictionary, but a thesaurus gives you a general feeling or idea of a word. And it said, for solar, it said celestial, heavenly, terrestrial, in all creation on the face of the globe, here below the sun. So solar basically means everything. And plexus said intersection, web, cross, weave, or link. So is your solar plexus the original World Wide Web? It's everything under the sun and an intersection and a link. So I think it's important to keep that open and be in touch with that and feel your feelings when you can. And that gives you gut feelings too. Discernment is really important. When an alien comes, to know if it's a good guy or a bad guy, and can you trust the news? Can you trust the internet? It's important to be able to rely on your gut feelings, which also come from that area. And that's another gift, is the gift of being able to use your discernment. So the other thing, you know, they talk about free will all the time. And one night I was feeling pretty discouraged because I know a lot of people have contacted me and said they were contacted by aliens when they were young, and they were so scared they sent them away. Get away, don't come back, I never want to see you again. But now that it's coming out that aliens might have better intentions, they want to invite them back, but they're a little bit afraid to. Are the aliens going to be mad at me? Are they going to hold a grudge? And no, they don't. They don't even know what revenge is. They're just loving. They would be thrilled if you did that and then you invited them back in. But I was upset one night when I wasn't feeling well, and I was angry, and I said, you know, how come these other people said go away and don't come back, but I said that, but you kept coming after me always, my whole life. You terrorized me, and you know, I was feeling kind of down about my life. And that night, Crote came to me just after I fell asleep, and he whooshed me out of my body. I believe some of the visits, they actually take our physical bodies to the ship. Other times, they take your soul or your essence out of your body and take you out and show you things. And he took me out into the stars. It's like zooming back out of Google Earth. You look at the Earth disappearing, and then you're out in these black space with the bright stars. And I just hovered there for a few minutes, and then we started drifting towards this landmass. It wasn't a planet or anything. It was just a landmass with mountains and ocean. And as we got closer, I could see that there was a valley that had like a Viking longhouse, and I could hear drumming and chanting and people talking, and it sounded like a celebration. And we went right inside the longhouse, and there were fire pits and torches, and there was a big, heavy wooden table in the center of the room, and it was laden with platters and goblets. And I could see myself standing at the head of the table with 3 spirit guides, and Crote told me, this was your pre-birth planning party. I was able to choose things, and they handed me a platter, a big golden platter, and big golden set of tongs. And I go up to the table, and there was not food or drink there, but it was life choices and life experiences. You know, and who's going to be my 3rd grade teacher, and who's going to be my best friend in high school, and who am I going to marry? And these are all the free will choices. And Crote explained that there are certain things that are free will and certain things that are set. And I had already set who my parents were going to be, and things like astrological influences, numerological influences. There's certain things you can't change, one of which was a lifetime of alien contact for me. So I got to choose other things, but not that. And also, as I went around the table, I was choosing a lot of difficult things for this lifetime. And a couple of the times, the spirit guides would kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, don't you think you're taking on a lot? And I'd say, no, I can handle this. And, you know, and I chose divorce and financial struggle and all these other things. And they were kind of rolling their eyes because they knew I was going to pass through the veil of forgetting when I was born, and then complain that I had a hard life, but actually I did choose it. So when you hear you create your own reality, I used to not like that phrase because I've had a kind of a difficult life. But on that level, yes, you do create your own reality, but then you come in and you have free will, and everybody else has free will. So even if you chose, maybe you were going to marry this person, maybe their parents had the free will to move to another country and you never met them. So it's like a big game. The aliens tell me our life is like a game, and that's one of the reasons they enjoy observing us, because that incident, that place there was kind of like setting up a Monopoly game. You know, you be the banker, you count out the money, and I'll buy the park place, and that's kind of what we do before we're born. We work with all these other souls that we want to interact with. But then we start the game, and we come in and we don't remember, and we have free will, so we sometimes make the wrong choices. So they've told me not to take everything so seriously and try to lighten up, because it really is just a game. And after it's done, we're all going to get together and laugh about it. But while we're here, it's not always so fun. So... And that also explains why some people just will not believe in aliens or UFOs. You might have somebody in your family or a spouse or your best friend, you're really into this and you want to talk about it with them, and they just will not believe. You can show them all the videos or books that you want, and they're just not going to believe it. And it's because they didn't put it on their platter. There's so many things to choose to experience on Earth life that they just didn't include that in this lifetime, so you may never be able to convince them of these things. And if you did not choose alien connection, they're now extending the invitation that they want to work with as many humans as they possibly can. So you have the free will to ask, even if you didn't have, interaction as a child or whatever, because they do want scientists and doctors and all the different minds and different perspectives that they possibly can to help. They want to help make the earth a better place. So when I was asked to speak at this conference, I was kind of nervous and a little apprehensive, and I took my dog for a walk. I have a new dog now, and she works with them too, I think. And she took me out in the grass and kept sniffing at this little silver spot in the grass, and she wouldn't move. And so I bent over and picked it up, and it was this happy little alien. And that was the day after I was invited to speak here. And he's just a little tiny plastic guy, but that was the sign I needed. So there are no coincidences. They are watching, they are guiding and helping, and they care and they love us. So, it's true that one man's trash is another man's treasure, and maybe the trinkets that I found were just lost or items that were thrown away, but I don't believe that. I believe it's proof that the aliens are watching and they are interacting, and they do care. And I believe that the aliens are reaching out across time, space, and dimensions with gifts, both tangible and intangible, to prove their existence and to validate our experiences. Their gifts are a bridge from one reality to another. So the next time you see something shiny out of the corner of your eye, don't ignore it, because it might just be a gift from an alien. So that's it.